We grew up with video game Christmas morning memories. It's why that movie last year, 8-Bit Christmas, was so successful.
Nintendo?
That's right. Come over here. I've missed you, Jake.
If you asked 100 kids around our age, what was your favorite Christmas gift ever, they probably would choose a Nintendo or Sega product. So we said, all right, if you still have it, bring in your cartridge or your CD, your retro video game, and talk about the Christmas morning opening. So let's start with you.
Obviously, very well known for Super Nintendo, but NES was really the first system that was Christmasable. As a child, I was actually always delayed on video game systems. I didn't get them the year they came out or the year after they came out. They had to do a price drop. The NES was the first system I got for Christmas. I believe I got it in Christmas 1991, which is pretty late for the NES.
Right.
A couple years later, when the first Addams Family movie came out, my parents picked me up this, Fester's Quest by Sunsoft. I really enjoy this game. It's a silly little top-down fighter with all kinds of flawed mechanics. My mother, when she had Christine, my youngest sister, she had to go to the hospital for like 2 weeks. And for some reason, she decided to take away all my video games. But I squirreled this one and Bubble Bobble away. So this and Bubble Bobble were the only 2 games I had to play over a whole 2-week period.
Could do worse.
Yeah, and Bubble Bobble got a little more play than this one because I got very frustrated with this game. But yeah, I remember it very fondly for that reason.
Sunsoft's an interesting company. They always had very interesting licensed game, of course, famously Batman, and some that lost their licenses like Journey to Silius. They always came up with interesting, fun ideas for the NES.
And this is my original copy, which is in very poor condition. I don't think it's operating anymore.
Yeah, it looks like it's got some kind of skin disease.
Yeah, I don't know quite what happened.
Just like Fester.
John Fetterman.
The NES stuff got put... A lot of the
John Fetterman's Quest.
But anyway, so all the NES stuff, before I was kind of preserving it, got put in the basement, and I'm pretty sure this sat face down on the floor in small water for a long time because the plastic is textured.
Do you suppose this plays?
I would be very surprised.
There's no amount of blowing into this
It doesn't
cartridge that's
look
going to
good.
save it.
And then I have one more, also an NES game, and it is, of course, The Legend of Zelda. The first RPG of any kind that I really played. This was another Christmas, the year after I got the NES. I played this game to death. This is also my original cartridge. You can see it's beat up, but it's in better shape than Fester's Quest because it stayed upstairs.
It wasn't in a standing pool.
No. Another amazing game. I still go back to this game. I have it on my Steam Deck. I play it.
Technically not an RPG, right? Because it doesn't have like turn-based play and...
Well, I consider it to be an RPG.
Yeah, I would call it an RPG.
Really?
I mean, they would call it an action RPG.
Yeah, action
nowadays.
RPG. yeah.
adventure game.
I'll briefly talk about one more. And it's not here for a specific reason. I do have the cartridge.
I drowned it in the basement.
The same year I got the Super Nintendo, I got a Star Trek game for NES. And let me tell you, that was my least liked game of any game I ever got for Christmas.
What kind of game was it?
You were in command of the Starship Enterprise, and it's all represented by strange little icons and a complicated interface. Original Star Trek, not Next Generation, which I was never really into. It was kind of a contrast to these games, which I loved, and Star Trek I played for maybe 30 minutes ever.
The NES had a lot of variance in quality.
It did.
But you regarded the NES like everything that you were going to get was going to be great.
Well, because Nintendo did do some kind of job of making sure there was some kind of quality.
Those later games, those, you know, the 91s,
Yes.
the 90s.
The 93s.
Yeah.
As a consumer, just word of mouth, you saw it in like Nintendo Power.
Nintendo Power.
You only had the box art, so you just stare at it in the rental store and be like,
Yeah.
maybe
This
this
looks
is
like
the
it might be
one.
fun. Well, when I was in 3rd grade for Christmas, I got my first Nintendo, which was great. And the game that came with it, Master Blaster, which is another Sunsoft game, which is a fun game. It's a great game.
I struggle with it myself.
Well, in my adult life, I have a very limited attention span. But as a kid, when you only have limited options,
you'll brute
you play
force.
over and
Yeah.
over and over again. I'm assuming they made Fester's Quest next. So they have the same music, the same sound effects, the same sprites in
Really?
Fester's Quest. I don't think they cut up and took leftovers from Fester's Quest and put it in Master Blaster. I think it was the other way around. I'm pretty sure that this I got for Christmas, Quest for Glory. I assume that you do not like point-and-click games.
I've had more fun with different kinds of games than point-and-click games.
Sierra had a line of games that were point-and-click like this. In the mid-90s, the first one I ever played was King's Quest VI, and it was beautiful because they had hand-drawn, hand-animated, beautiful backgrounds, beautiful sprites. And this was kind of in the same vein. There was this beautiful overworld where you kind of interact with characters, and it was recorded audio, so there was speaking voices.
This is some kind of altar to the Dark One. The top is covered with sand.
I think this came with something like a computer pack that someone got for Christmas, and this was the game that came with it. The original Oregon Trail was for MECC, I think. This is not that, it's an actual CD, so it has audio and it has speaking.
Whoa.
Good day to you, friend. I'm new here in town. I'm making ready to head out on the trail west.
I think I had Oregon Trail 2 for Windows 3.1.
We had this at our school. Everyone wanted to play this just so they could blow the out of animals. Because you could do a hunting session. Yeah. We were in like a Catholic school. And
But animals don't have souls, so you can overhunt them.
Yes.
I killed 15 buffalo and got like, 20,000 pounds of meat.
I love that era, like with like Myst, you'd have like the game developers just like putting on robes and stuff.
Here. Most of what you'll need to know is in there. Keep it well hidden.
But you got these for Christmas? Or are you fudging this assignment?
This one I'm pretty sure I got for Christmas. Master Blaster was definitely that. This...
LucasArts?
Kind of point and click. I didn't get this for Christmas, but I remember for...
Get it out of the show!
For Christmas vacation, someone let me borrow this, and I played the shit out of it.
Associated with Christmas loosely.
I got this one for Halloween.
I'm gonna sympathize with Matt here, because a lot of the fun of Christmas is you have that week off. I can get through Final Fantasy IX. I can get through it.
This one, The Sims.
I love The Sims.
You know, call me a Luddite. I just find it all too dull.
Well, you gotta use your imagination.
My sister played Sims 2000, Jeopardy on the NES. There's a whole classification of games that were like, that's Christie's games. Oregon Trail had a little, because you could blow animals to pieces.
That was the only appealing part of it?
And going down the river. But certainly dialogue boxes about diarrhea didn't really get me through.
Roller Coaster Tycoon was a big one.
Oh, yeah.
Where you just like make the roller coasters just kill all the patrons.
Yeah.
I've got Yoshi's Island. I got it for Christmas and it was almost like an afterthought because it came out the Christmas of the Virtual Boy. And I was obsessed with Virtual Boy, like in the marketing. Like I thought, oh, this is the next thing, obviously, virtual reality. It's red.
I love the Game Boy.
The Wario game looked great.
It actually was
It was good. It was great. But this was the one that made me put away the Virtual Boy. The art style, the gameplay.
It's the Super Nintendo at the height of its powers.
It really is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And then the marketing was really weird because it had that Monty Python sketch with the guy like bursting open with his disgusting belly.
Sure you don't have room for another little bonus level? Super Mario World 2, only on the Super NES.
They were like, we gotta market this to preteens and teens.
They love Ren and Stimpy and shit.
Yeah.
Totally hid this beautiful game behind it. But I also wanted to talk about the Christmas right after that, which was the N64 Christmas, which was such an event.
So how different is it from the old Mario games? Well, take a look. There's really no comparison. They've even made the music, well, honestly, less annoying.
It was Tickle Me Elmo, and it was Nintendo 64.
This may very well be the last Tickle Me Elmo to be found in the Bay Area, but he's already sold. And when we brought him out into the store, we caused a near riot.
I remember there was like scalpers that had pages and pages of classified ads of Tickle Me Elmo N64.
The other hot toys include CD-Rom Barbie and Nintendo 64, but even they can't rival the demand for Elmo.
And Jingle All the Way came out that year. Everybody was experiencing what Arnold was experiencing.
And like every kid was scared they weren't gonna get a Nintendo 64.
I was.
I'm afraid I'm not gonna get this.
I like resigned myself to not getting it. I told my mom, like, don't worry about it. Just get like a Lego set. Christmas morning, my parents played a little troll. I got like a tiny Lego set, I got all these things. And I was like, oh. And then the last thing they brought out was just, it looked like a game cart. Open up, it's Mario 64. It's like, oh, Santa didn't have the N64s on it, but you get this game, you can look at it.
That's awesome.
And I was like, oh, well, I mean, like, even as a kid, if you have like the packaging, that's like almost enough. It's almost enough for you. And then, of course, they brought it out of the garage. Called my friend, and he was like, I got one too. And it was just, it's just like
I have that same memory, actually. Like, yeah, calling around. It turned out that everybody did get one.
All the parents stood in line. They did it.
And you make a good point about like the game you didn't expect to be the hit with you. I remember I actually thought I wanted a PlayStation 1 because Mortal Kombat Trilogy was coming out for that and it had more characters. And then of course, Mario 64 was the thing that swept me up.
When I wanted something for my Nintendo 64, Zelda's great, Turok 2, South Park would be fine. How about Rogue Squadron? That game should be mine.
Make up for a lame Christmas. Get the hits you missed on N64.
Well, I also got trolled. So here's the deal. Your 16-bit system was Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
When we were kids, you got one, you didn't get both.
Yeah, that's right.
There were enough students in my class that convinced me that Sega Genesis was the way to go. And you'll remember that Sega did beat Nintendo in sales for like 2 years in a row.
They did.
I got a Genesis in '92, which is a little tiny bit later, past the Altered Beast, past Strider, a pre-Sonic Genesis era.
Yeah, before the Super Nintendo was out.
I knew nothing of the Master System. Only recently have I kind of learned a little bit more about the Master System. But what it came with on Christmas morning was Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Not one.
And I never got a chance really to play one until maybe a few years later. It's a really an inferior game. This was Sonic bringing it.
Yeah, you know, Sonic 2 is great. It's better than the first one. You have great graphics. Sonic has a new friend called Tails, the fox, two tails. Cool.
This was Sonic being like, this is what I have to offer.
Yeah.
Totally next generation of video games. Sonic 2 was pushing it so much further than anything I saw on the NES. But maybe 2 years later, Sonic 3 comes out. I didn't get Sonic 3. I had rented it, and there was this character, Knuckles, that was compelling. You know, kids love new characters, new mascots. And then they came out with a game called Sonic and Knuckles. And they had this weird gimmick where they said it's got this lock-on technology where you pop open the slot and you can put in another game and you can get some DLC that way.
Yeah.
And it was really confusing. And they said you can pop in Sonic 3. Well, shoot, I don't have that. Or you can pop in Sonic 2 and you can play Sonic 2 as Knuckles. We're gonna give you a ROM hack.
Yeah, basically, it was really cool.
And I was like, well, I can do that.
Plus, it has new technology. Lock-on technology. So you can play Knuckles in Sonic 2 and 3. It's revolutionary. You just laughed at us.
So we sold the whole thing to Sega?
Who's laughing now? Batman!
This was the thing I wanted, Sonic and Knuckles. Not realizing that the reason they were doing this was because Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles was the full game. They had to split it into two because of cartridge size, and they made double the money. So I begged for it, I begged for it, I begged for it. It's the big one anytime I was put in front of the feet of Santa, and they let me open every present and not find Sonic and Knuckles. And of course I didn't say anything. And they said, can you go out to the mail? We forgot to bring it in yesterday. Can you like go out and bring in the mail? And I was like, ugh. And I go out to the mailbox and Sonic and Knuckles is just sitting there in the mailbox. And yeah, for years, it was Sonic 2 that I popped in playing as Knuckles. Years later, I actually got to get Sonic 3, which I have in box.
Oh.
The way God intended.
This is the game to end all Sega Genesis games.
It's an amazing game.
And finally, I'm a huge Power Rangers fan. You know, recently we lost Jason David Frank, and here's the sad reality. Power Rangers had a lot of video games released for it, but not unlike The Simpsons, most of them were unplayable or unfun. They got close. There was a Super Nintendo one was okay. There was a fighting game, The graphics were really good, but it wasn't really playable.
Yeah.
There's one that's very good because it's basically just Streets of Rage. And it's Power Rangers the movie for Sega Genesis. The one for Super Nintendo didn't follow the movie plot at all. What this did was the first 3 levels followed the movie, then it flashed back to the show, gave you a bunch of events from the show, and then ended with the movie finale. And you went in between Zord levels. You never played as the actual teens unmorphed. Although there's an open source platform called Open Boar, Open Beats of Rage. You can develop your own beat 'em up through this. And somebody made something called Beats of Power, and it's basically this, but you can morph, more level variety. It's really just kind of a beefed up version of this.
Yeah.
You know how right after you open all the gifts, you're supposed to go visit some family?
Sure.
You know how you're always trying to sneak in, like maybe I can get like a half hour video games in before we all leave. This was the game that I was like, that I left paused. I still play this to this day. I really enjoy this game. Well, there you go, some Christmas video game memories.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Do you guys have anything you're playing that you would want to play while you have time off?
I've just got myself a Steam Deck, which has kind of revitalized my interest.
Pick that sucker up.
A
Show
whole
us
bunch
this.
of games.
Oh my God, it's enormous.
It's enormous.
I've got it set up with emulators, so I've got a lot of my classic games. But I've also been playing some great Steam games on it. I just got the Katamari remake. I've been replaying Stardew Valley.
How much storage you got on that thing?
I bought the big buck one, the 512 gig, and I've got a 128 gig card in it, which has emulation stuff on it. And I just picked up on Steam sale Forza, and I'm looking forward to trying that out. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun too. I love racing games.
It looks a lot like a Game Gear.
Big Game Gear.
Does it fly through battery? like a Game Gear does.
Emulation, I can get maybe 6-7 hours out of it. On a really serious 3D game, it's 2.5, 3 hours.
Jingle bells, Santa smells, Christmas really stunk. I got nothing that I like, my gifts were all just junk.